That night, I learned that kindness could save your life in the strangest way. My name is Amelia Grant, I'm 35 years old, and I live just outside Dallas, Texas. I've always been a woman who believes that the energy you give out to the world comes back to you, whether it's love, patience, or even a simple glass of water. But I never imagined that belief would one day stop 6 armed robbers in my living room. It all started on a quiet Thursday night. The kind where the air outside feels heavy, and the crickets sing like they know something you don't. I was sitting in my small but cozy home office, counting the money, $231,000, cash meant for a government landscaping contract I'd won just a week ago. The deal had taken me 5 years to earn, late nights, endless bids, and doors slammed in my face. I should have felt proud that day. Instead, I felt tired but relieved. The money was packed neatly in brown envelopes, locked in my drawer, waiting to be deposited in the morning. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed through the living room. The sound of shattering glass snapped my thoughts in half. My heart leaped. Before I could stand, I heard footsteps, heavy, fast, confident. My breath caught in my throat as 6 men in black stormed in, faces covered with masks, holding guns that glinted under my ceiling light. "Don't scream," the one in front growled, his voice deep and cold. "We know what you have." I froze. My whole body went numb. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My mind raced through prayers, memories, and unfinished dreams. The leader, tall and broad-shouldered, pointed to the drawer. "The money. Now." My hands shook as I pulled it open. I tried to stay calm, but tears blurred my eyes. "Please, it's for a contract. I worked hard for that money." He snatched the envelopes, counted roughly, and gave a dry laugh. "231,000, right? We did our homework." Another man beside him whistled. "Lady, that's a lot of zeros." They stuffed the envelopes into a black duffel bag while 2 others went around, turning my living room upside down, pulling drawers, breaking picture frames, searching for anything valuable. My late husband's photo crashed to the floor, and I felt something inside me crack. Then something unexpected happened. One of them, a younger man, maybe no older than 25, looked up from the chaos and asked softly, "Ma'am, you got water?" His voice didn't match the violence around him. It sounded human, tired. Without thinking, I pointed to the fridge. "There. Take what you need." He opened it. For a moment, everything was silent. Then he grabbed a bottle, drank, and suddenly stumbled back, dropping it. I don't feel," his words slurred. He fell onto the couch. At first, I thought it was fear. But then, another one yawned, swayed, and dropped his gun. "What the hell?" he muttered before collapsing next to the first. Then a third one blinked hard, rubbing his face. "Yo, what's happening?" he said, voice thick. He tried to stand but slumped over. Within seconds, 4 of them were down, snoring, literally asleep. Deep, heavy sleep. The leader's eyes went wide. He dropped the bag and backed away. "What did you do?" he shouted, grabbing his gun tighter. I didn't do anything," I said, raising my hands. "You asked for water." But he didn't wait for answers. He ran, just bolted through the broken door, and disappeared into the night. And I was left there, shaking, staring at 4 armed men sleeping on my floor like children after a long day. That's when I realized I had a chance. My fingers trembled as I grabbed my phone, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I dialed 911, voice breaking as I whispered, "This is Amelia Grant. I've been robbed, but you need to come fast. Something strange is happening." As the sirens wailed faintly in the distance, I looked around my living room. The air felt thick with disbelief. I didn't know if the men were poisoned, drugged, or if this was some miracle. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was in that fridge, it wasn't just water. Now, before I tell you how that night really began, I want to ask, where are you watching from? Dallas?
Toronto?
Maybe Los Angeles or Vancouver? Because wherever you are, I promise, this story will make you question what kindness truly means. You see, the story didn't start with the robbery. It started 2 months earlier with something small. Something so ordinary I almost ignored it. Back then, I was just Amelia, the too nice woman everyone said would get hurt one day. I owned a small landscaping company called Green Haven Designs, specializing in school gardens and public parks. Life wasn't easy. I'd lost my husband, Ryan, 3 years before in a construction accident, and ever since, I'd been rebuilding both my business and my heart. But kindness, it was what he left me with. Ryan always said, "Mia, the world breaks people. Be the one who fixes it, even if all you've got is tape." So I tried. I helped where I could, neighbors, strangers, even people who didn't deserve it. Maybe that's why I helped that young delivery man 2 months ago. The same one who brought me something strange, something that would change everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it happened. I'd just returned from a city meeting when a delivery van pulled into my driveway. A man in a wrinkled blue uniform stepped out, holding a medium-sized cooler box. He looked nervous, sweaty, and out of breath. "Delivery for Miss Amelia Grant?" he asked. "Yes, that's me." "What is it?" Not sure, ma'am," he said, scratching his head. "Says here, special sample. Keep refrigerated." I frowned. "From who?" He glanced at the paper, squinting. "No sender listed." Weird. I hesitated, but he looked exhausted, like he'd been on the road for hours. "You want some water?" I asked. He smiled weakly. "Ma'am, you have no idea how much I need that." I handed him a bottle from the fridge. He drank, sighed deeply, and smiled. "Thank you. Most people don't even open the door when I knock." "It's hot outside," I said, shrugging. "You look like you've had a day." He nodded. "You're kind, ma'am. The world needs more of that." Then he left, and I put that mysterious cooler in the fridge without thinking twice. For days, I didn't touch it, didn't even open it. I thought maybe it was a sample from one of our suppliers or some eco-experiment product from the city council. But later that week, I noticed something odd. The water bottles inside were always cold, even when the power went out. Still, I didn't pay much attention. Life was busy. I was preparing for the biggest contract of my career, managing late payments, and barely sleeping. But I remember one night, just like the night of the robbery, I took one of those bottles, drank half, and felt this strange calmness wash over me. Not sleepy, not dizzy, just calm. I never thought about it again. Not until those robbers opened that same fridge. Now, as I stood there watching 4 armed men sleeping peacefully in my living room, sirens growing louder outside, a question kept ringing in my head like a warning bell. What was really in that water? And, even more importantly, who sent it to me? The police lights flashed through my broken windows. My heart thudded with fear, confusion, and something else, a tiny spark of realization that my life, from that night forward, would never be the same again. Because the delivery man, the cooler, the missing sender label, none of it was an accident. And before I could even process what I discovered, there was another sound outside, footsteps. Someone was coming back. The sirens were close now, so close I could feel the vibration through the floor. My body trembled as I peeked through the curtains. The red and blue lights were still a few streets away, but the sound, it was coming fast. Yet under that growing noise, I heard something else. Footsteps. Slow, steady, crunching the gravel outside my house. Someone was back. My breath caught in my chest. The air felt thick, heavy, like it didn't want to move. I pressed my back to the wall, clutching my phone so tightly that my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream, to hide, to run, but all I could do was listen. The sound grew louder. Then a shadow moved across my front porch. A tall figure, broad shoulders, wearing black. The same man who had fled earlier. The leader. He had come back. He stepped through the shattered door slowly, scanning the room. His gun was gone, but he held a flashlight now, its beam slicing across the chaos in my living room. The moment that light landed on his men, 4 of them sleeping like babies, he froze. "What the?" he muttered, lowering the beam. Wake up, you idiots." He kicked one of them lightly, but nothing happened. No response. Just deep, even breathing. That's when his head snapped toward me. Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he spoke, his voice low but trembling with confusion. "What did you give them?" "Water," I whispered. "Just water." He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw tight, his eyes darting from the bottles on the floor to the fridge. Then, slowly, he opened it. He grabbed a bottle, unscrewed the cap, and sniffed it. Nothing unusual. He sniffed again, suspicious, before taking the tiniest sip. And then, almost instantly, he dropped it. His flashlight clattered to the floor. "Oh no," he mumbled, clutching his head. "No, no, no." He swayed, stumbled, and tried to steady himself on the counter. What's in?" His words faded, slurred, and before I could say anything, he collapsed onto his knees, then fell flat beside his crew. Silence. Just like that, all 6 of them were down. The siren stopped outside. A loudspeaker crackled. "This is the Dallas Police Department. Step outside with your hands where we can see them." I hesitated, heart pounding. For a second, I wondered if they would even believe this. 6 robbers asleep on my floor, like some twisted fairy tale? But I raised my hands and walked outside, my legs trembling. The night air hit my face, cool and sharp. I could see the flashing lights painting my house red and blue. 3 police cars, 2 officers behind doors with weapons drawn. A woman's voice shouted, "Ma'am, are you hurt?" I shook my head. "No. But you might want to see inside." Minutes later, my house was filled with police officers, medics, and chaos. I stood outside on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching through the window as they checked each man's pulse. They were alive, breathing steadily, but completely unconscious. Detective Marcus Harlan, tall, broad, and with a calm kind of face that said he'd seen everything, stepped out and joined me. "You're lucky, ma'am. Real lucky," he said, rubbing his chin. "These guys are known. Armed robbery crew that's been hitting contractors and small business owners for months. You just helped us end their spree." I nodded weakly. "But how did they fall asleep like that?" He looked at me curiously. "You tell me." "We found open bottles of water next to all of them." "I didn't put anything in it," I said quickly. "I swear. It was already in the fridge." "They asked for water." I just pointed. He studied me for a moment, then asked, "Where did that water come from?" That question hit me harder than I expected. I thought back to the delivery man. The cooler. The strange note that didn't exist. I don't know," I said quietly. "It just came." The detective nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing like he didn't quite believe me, but couldn't prove otherwise. "We'll take samples. You'll need to come in tomorrow to give a statement. For now, you should rest." But how could I rest? My entire world had just spun upside down. When they finally left, after hours of questions, photos, and reports, I sat alone in my quiet, broken living room. The dawn light was just starting to peek through the windows, turning everything pale and strange. I should have felt safe. I should have felt grateful. But instead, I felt something else. A deep, crawling unease. Because when I went to clean the mess, I noticed the fridge. It was empty, completely empty. Every single bottle of that mysterious water was gone. And right there, taped to the inside of the door, was something that hadn't been there before. A small folded note, handwritten in blue ink. I froze. My heart hammered as I reached for it, hands trembling. It read, "You did well, Amelia. But this isn't over yet. R." The note slipped from my fingers. R. The letter burned into my mind. Who was R? Ryan? My late husband? Impossible. He'd been gone for 3 years. Or could it be someone else entirely? I sat there, staring at the note, my thoughts spiraling. The water. The robbers. The calm feeling I'd felt weeks ago. The delivery man. It all connected somehow. But before I could make sense of any of it, my phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. You shouldn't have called the police. The phone slipped from my hand. My chest tightened. I rushed to the window, but all I saw was the empty street. The morning light had broken, but somehow, It felt darker than the night before. I locked every door, every window, and sat on the couch with that note in my hand, whispering to myself over and over. "Who are you, R?" Then, faintly, I heard it. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze. The 3 knocks echoed through my hallway like thunder in a storm. I didn't breathe. My eyes fixed on the door, the same one that had been shattered just hours earlier, but was now temporarily boarded with plywood by the police.
Who could be there now?
It was only 7 a.m., the sky still soft gray, the air quiet, heavy with the smell of dust and fear. I picked up my phone, ready to dial Detective Harlan, when another set of knocks followed, slower, firmer. "Miss Grant." A voice called from the other side.
"Mail. Come."
Not loud, but steady enough to send a chill up my spine. "Please open the door. I won't hurt you." My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I'm the man who delivered that cooler to you." I froze. Every part of me screamed to stay silent. But curiosity, dangerous, foolish curiosity, rooted me to the spot. I moved closer, still clutching my phone, my finger hovering over 911. "What do you want?" I said, trying to sound brave. He sighed softly, the sound muffled by the wood. "To explain. You're in danger now, Amelia." That note wasn't a warning. It was a promise. I swallowed hard. A promise of what? Of what's coming next. Something about the way he said it, calm, certain, made my skin crawl. "Go away," I said firmly. "If you come near this house, I'll call the police again." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I came before they could get here first." Before they could. My pulse raced. "Who are they?" But he didn't answer. Instead, I heard the sound of footsteps moving away, soft at first, then fading into nothing. I stood there, staring at the door for nearly 5 minutes before I finally dared to move. When I peeked outside, he was gone. But something else was there. A small brown envelope, taped to the broken frame. I hesitated before picking it up. My fingers shook as I tore it open and slid out a folded sheet of paper and a single photo. The photo hit me like a punch. It was of me, standing at my front porch 2 days ago, smiling at a woman from across the street. I remembered that moment. Mrs. Whitaker had been returning my casserole dish. I was wearing the same blue shirt, the same jeans. The angle of the photo was perfect. Too perfect. It was taken from a distance, zoomed in like a sniper's lens. Someone had been watching me. The letter read, "You were chosen for a reason." The water wasn't poisoned. It was coded. It reacts to fear. Their minds couldn't take it. You'll understand soon. Protect the cooler.
R.
I stared at the words until they blurred. Protect the cooler? But it was gone, emptied, taken by the police. Then, like lightning, the memory hit me.
There was still 1 bottle left.
I'd hidden it by accident 2 weeks ago, behind the frozen vegetables in the garage mini-fridge. I'd forgotten it was there. My legs moved before my mind did. I rushed to the garage, yanked open the fridge, and there it was. The last bottle. The same kind. No label. Just crystal clear water inside a glass container. I held it up against the light, watching it shimmer faintly, almost like it had a pulse of its own. A coded water that reacts to fear? What did that even mean? Some kind of psychological trigger? A chemical experiment? I thought of the robbers, their heavy breathing, the way they just fell asleep. Whatever this was, it wasn't ordinary. And whoever R was, they knew things they shouldn't. I decided to call Detective Harlan. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. "Detective, it's Amelia," I said quickly. "Someone just came to my house. The delivery man. He left a note and a photo of me, taken without my knowledge." He didn't sound surprised. "We've been trying to reach you. Something strange came up with the samples we took." "What do you mean?" He paused. "The lab says the water doesn't have any known sedative, drug, or chemical compound. It's clean, completely pure. But for some reason, every subject who smells or drinks it in a test chamber falls asleep within seconds. Like it triggers something neurological." My stomach turned. So it's real. Real and unexplainable, he said grimly. We've sent it to the state lab for deeper analysis. But until we know more, I need you to stay somewhere safe. Do you have family nearby? I almost laughed.
No.
It's just me.
He sighed.
All right. I'll send a patrol car to stay near your home tonight. And Amelia? Yes. Don't drink that water again. Not even a drop. The line clicked off. I set my phone down and looked at the bottle one more time. It sat on the counter, harmless, silent, but something about it seemed to hum in the still air. As the hours passed, I tried to rest, but sleep refused to come. Every creak of the house made me flinch. I checked the windows twice, locked every door. The patrol car's headlights occasionally flashed outside, a weak comfort in the growing dark. But at 1:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of a soft buzz. My phone screen lit up. A message. Unknown number again. If you still have the bottle, they're coming for it tonight. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my robe, and ran to the garage. My heart slammed against my ribs. The bottle was still there, but this time, it wasn't alone. Right beside it, resting on the counter, was a small black device, like a tracker. A red light blinked on and off. Someone had been in my house, and they knew exactly where to look. Just then, headlights flashed outside. Not one, not two, but 3 vehicles pulling into my driveway. The engines didn't turn off. Doors opened. Footsteps crunched. I peeked through the blinds, black SUVs, tinted windows. No police markings. My mouth went dry. They were here. The hum of the engines outside grew louder, blending with the steady thump of my heart. My hand shook as I peered through the blinds again. 3 black SUVs parked in a perfect formation across my driveway, their headlights slicing through the night like eyes that never blinked. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The street was eerily quiet. Even the crickets had gone silent. Then, as if on cue, 4 men stepped out of the first SUV, dressed in all black, wearing bulletproof vests and earpieces. Not police, too quiet, too controlled. I backed away from the window, my chest tight with panic. They moved like soldiers, not burglars. Whoever they were, this wasn't random. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Do not let them take the bottle. Hide it. Now. My mind spun.
Who were these people?
FBI? Secret agents? Or worse, the same people behind the water? I didn't have time to think. I grabbed the bottle, wrapped it in an old towel, and shoved it into the laundry chute that dropped into the basement. Then I dashed for the light switch and killed every light in the house. The night swallowed everything. Then 3 hard knocks on the front door. Miss Grant, this is Agent Keller with the Federal Security Bureau, a deep voice announced. We need to ask you a few questions regarding the incident at your home last night. Federal Security Bureau? I'd never heard of that agency in my life. I didn't answer.
My throat was dry.
Miss Grant, he said again, voice calm but commanding. We're not here to hurt you. But you're in possession of material that belongs to the United States government. We need it back. The government? My stomach dropped. Another man spoke, sharper, impatient. We can come in the easy way or the hard way, ma'am. That's when I heard it, the quiet metallic click of a lockpick being used. Panic surged. I bolted toward the back door, slipped into the yard, and crouched behind my garden shed. The cold grass soaked my knees, and I tried to steady my breathing. My pulse thundered in my ears. The front door creaked open. Boots thudded inside. She's not here, a voice said. Check every room, the leader ordered. Find the sample. They spread out fast, flashlights sweeping across windows. I could see their beams flickering through my curtains. That's when I remembered the old basement window behind the shed. If I could get inside, I could grab the bottle and maybe escape through the back field. I crawled across the wet ground, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. The window was half buried in soil, small but wide enough for me to squeeze through. I lifted it carefully, the hinges creaking softly. Inside, the basement was pitch dark and smelled of concrete and dust. I climbed down, landing on cold cement, my breath shallow. I felt along the wall until I found the laundry chute and reached inside. My fingers brushed fabric, the towel. Relief flooded through me. The bottle was still there. But before I could move, I heard footsteps above me.
Slow.
Heavy. Then a beam of light swept across the basement stairs. "Got a signal down here," one of them said. I froze. The tracker. The red blinking light I'd seen earlier. It must have still been on the counter. They were tracing it. I needed to move now. I tucked the bottle inside my jacket and darted toward the old storm door at the far end of the basement. It led out to the backyard, though it hadn't been used in years. I shoved it open with all my strength, the rusty hinges squealing in protest. Down here, a voice shouted behind me. I ran, barefoot, breathless. The cool night air slapped my face as I tore across the yard toward the woods behind my property. Branches whipped at my arms, my feet sinking into damp leaves. "Stop," someone yelled. Flashlights bobbed behind me, getting closer. I pushed harder, lungs burning, until the house lights disappeared behind the trees. The only sound now was my heartbeat and the distant crunch of boots chasing me. I didn't stop running until I reached the old creek at the edge of the woods. I crouched behind a fallen log, gasping, clutching the bottle to my chest. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another text. Same unknown number.
Good.
"You have it. Go east along the creek for half a mile. You'll see a blue mailbox. There's a cabin behind it. You're safe there." Safe? I didn't even know who I was trusting anymore. But staying here meant getting caught. So I followed the creek. My legs ached, my body shivered, but I kept moving. After what felt like forever, I spotted it, the blue mailbox, faded and rusted, standing crooked near a gravel path. A faint light glowed from a cabin tucked behind the trees. I approached carefully. The door creaked open before I could knock. And standing there was the delivery man. His eyes looked different now, tired, but not frightened, like someone who had seen too much. "Amelia," he said softly, "you did the right thing." I stared at him, breathless. "What is this?
Who are you?"
What's in that water?" He gestured for me to come inside.
"Please."
"It's a long story, but if I don't explain now, they'll find us both." I hesitated, staring at him, at the warm light spilling from the doorway, and at the silent woods behind me. For a moment I thought of running, of throwing the bottle into the creek and pretending this night never happened. But something deep inside me whispered that the truth, however terrifying, was waiting inside that cabin. So I stepped in. And that's when I saw the photographs on the wall. Dozens of them, each of me. In my garden, at the grocery store, driving,
Smiling. Crying.
all taken from a distance. I turned to him slowly. "You've been watching me?" He nodded once. "We had to. Because, Amelia?" He paused, eyes heavy with something that looked like regret. "You're the reason this experiment started." The room fell silent after those words left his mouth. I stood there frozen, staring at the man I'd once offered water to, a stranger who had suddenly become the center of everything terrifying in my life. "What do you mean? I'm the reason this experiment started?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed, motioning for me to sit. The cabin was dimly lit, cluttered with scattered papers, photographs, and strange glass vials filled with faintly glowing liquid. It looked more like a laboratory than a home. "Please, Amelia," he said, lowering himself into a chair across from me. "Let me explain before you decide what to believe." I hesitated but sat down, still clutching the bottle under my coat like it was the last piece of truth I had. "My name is Eli Rivers," he began. "I worked for a private research division under a government contract called Project Vitalis. It started as a neurological study, an attempt to create a liquid compound that could calm violent behavior instantly, without harm. A peace serum, they called it." He paused, rubbing his hands together as if reliving something painful. The goal was to help soldiers, trauma victims, even people suffering from severe anxiety. But something went wrong. The formula started reacting differently depending on the emotional state of the person who drank it. Some felt peace. Others. He looked toward the floor. fell into deep unconsciousness. Some never woke up. My stomach tightened. So, that's what happened to the robbers. He nodded. They were filled with fear and aggression. The serum reacts to those signals. It shuts the brain down temporarily, forcing sleep. The purer the fear, the faster it happens. I swallowed hard, remembering how quickly they'd fallen. But what does any of this have to do with me? I asked. He met my eyes. Because your husband, Ryan Grant, was one of the lead engineers who helped develop the early version of it. My heart stopped. That's not possible. It is, Eli said quietly. Ryan worked under a different name, R. Grant. He was part of the team until the project was suspended 3 years ago after a lab explosion. The government declared him dead. But before that happened, he sent out several unmarked samples to people he trusted, people he thought could hide them. You were one of them. My hands shook. The letter, the cooler, the handwriting on the note signed, R. It couldn't be. You're saying my husband sent me that water? Before he died. Eli's eyes softened. He wasn't supposed to, but he believed the project had been corrupted. He said someone in the government wanted to weaponize the serum, to use fear as control instead of peace. I leaned back, my head spinning. Every word felt like a dream I didn't want to believe. So, he mailed it to me to protect it? Yes, Eli said. He said if anything happened to him, the truth would eventually find its way back to you. My throat tightened. I looked down at the bottle. My husband's handwriting, his letter, his silent message. It all made sense now. But why are they after it now? I whispered. Because, Eli said grimly, the people who took over Project Vitalis learned that your husband might have created a counteragent, a formula that could neutralize the effects of fear manipulation permanently. That last bottle you have? It's the only sample of that counteragent that exists. I froze. Counteragent. He nodded. It's not just water, Amelia. It's the cure for what they're trying to build. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the thin cabin walls. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I finally asked, why tell me all this now? Why not before the robbery? Before people broke into my house? Because, he said quietly, I didn't know you'd open the cooler. You weren't supposed to use it. But when you did, and the robbers fell, their unconsciousness triggered every tracking system tied to that formula. That's how they found you. I stood up, heart racing. So, they know where we are right now. Eli looked up sharply, fear flashing in his eyes. Before he could answer, a soft crack echoed from outside, the sound of a branch snapping. We both froze. Then another sound, a muffled voice, a distant shout. They're here, Eli whispered. He rushed to a cabinet and grabbed a small metal case, tossing it to me.
Take this.
If something happens to me, go north. There's an abandoned gas station off Route 39. A woman named Dr. Claire Whitmore will help you. What's in this case? I asked, clutching it tightly. The formula codes, he said quickly. Everything your husband left behind. A loud crash interrupted him. The front door burst open, splinters flying as men in tactical suits stormed inside, weapons raised. Down on the ground.
Now.
Eli shoved me behind the table. Run, Amelia, he shouted. Gunfire exploded, loud, sharp, deafening. I screamed and ducked, glass shattering around us. Eli fired back with a small pistol I hadn't noticed before, taking down one of them before another bullet struck his shoulder. He stumbled but kept firing. I crawled toward the back door, clutching the bottle and the metal case. The air was filled with smoke, shouting, chaos. My ears rang. Go! Eli shouted again, blood soaking his sleeve. Don't stop until you find Claire. I hesitated, just long enough to see him fall behind the overturned table, clutching his side, his eyes meeting mine one last time. Tell him, he whispered weakly. Tell Ryan. I kept my promise. Then the explosion hit. A flash of light. A roar of fire. The world spun into chaos as the cabin walls split apart. I was thrown into the cold dirt outside, pain shooting through my body. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. All I could hear was the ringing in my ears and the crackle of fire consuming what was left of the cabin. I forced myself up, clutching the case and the bottle. Smoke stung my eyes. Then I saw headlights cutting through the trees, two of the black SUVs speeding closer. I ran. Branches tore at my skin, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. The cold night air burned my lungs, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Behind me, voices shouted. Flashlights flashed. I reached the road, a long, empty stretch of gravel disappearing into darkness. I didn't think. I just ran into it, waving desperately at the first pair of headlights I saw in the distance. A pickup truck slowed. The driver, an older man with a weathered face, rolled down the window. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked, confused by my panic. I climbed in, shaking. "Please, just drive. Anywhere but here." He didn't ask questions. He hit the gas. The truck roared forward. As we sped away, I looked down at the case and the bottle in my lap, my husband's secret, the key to everything, and whispered to myself through trembling lips, "Ryan, what did you do?" Behind us, the night sky lit up in flames where the cabin once stood. But in that fiery glow, just for a moment, I thought I saw a figure standing, silhouetted against the blaze, watching us leave. And he looked a lot like my husband. The truck sped down the dark stretch of road, tires crunching over gravel as the forest fell away behind us. My heart was still pounding, my fingers clutching the metal case, so tightly they hurt. The driver, a man who said his name was Harold, kept glancing at me every few seconds, his brow furrowed. "You sure you're all right, miss? You're bleeding," he said, pointing to the scrape on my cheek. "I'm fine," I whispered, still staring at the smoke curling in the distance. "Just keep driving. Please." He nodded silently and kept his eyes on the road. The truck's headlights carved through the night, illuminating patches of mist that drifted across the empty highway. My mind was a storm of questions. Ryan was alive? Eli was dead, or maybe not. And what exactly had I been protecting all this time? The bottle of water glowed faintly in my lap under the dim truck light. I wrapped it in my scarf and tucked it safely into my bag. "You running from someone?" Harold finally asked. I hesitated. "Something like that." He nodded again, as if he'd seen this kind of thing before. "Well, I can take you as far as Greenfield. After that, the road split north and west. You got family there?" I thought of my parents in Maine, of my brother in Chicago, of all the people I couldn't risk contacting now. "No," I said quietly. "Just someone I need to find." We drove in silence for nearly an hour. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion and pain. My body ached, my mind spun, and every sound outside made me flinch. But when we finally reached a small gas station on the edge of Greenfield, I sat up straight. It was old. Half of its sign flickered, and only one of the lights over the pumps worked, but it matched Eli's directions almost exactly. "Could you stop here?" I asked. Harold slowed the truck and pulled in beside the pumps.
Sure.
"You sure you don't want me to stay? This place looks dead." "I'll be fine," I said, though my voice trembled. "Thank you, really." He tipped his hat, gave me a sympathetic smile, and drove off, leaving me alone in the dim light of the station. The building looked abandoned, dusty windows, a single flickering light above the door, and no sound except the wind. But when I pushed open the door, a soft ding echoed from a bell overhead. Inside, a woman stood behind the counter, her hair silver and tied back neatly. She wore a brown coat and reading glasses, flipping through a book. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes lifting to meet mine. "Are you Dr. Claire Whitmore?" I asked. Her expression froze, then softened. "Who's asking?" "Eli River sent me," I said quickly, opening my bag. "He told me to find you. He said you could help." Her face changed. The book snapped shut, and she hurried around the counter. "Come with me," she whispered. I followed her through a narrow hallway that led to a locked steel door at the back of the station. She pressed her hand to a small scanner beside it, and the door clicked open with a hiss. Behind it was a staircase leading underground. "Go," she urged. Before anyone sees you. We descended into a concrete tunnel lit by dim yellow bulbs. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal. At the bottom was a small underground lab, computers, monitors, and tables filled with chemical instruments. I stared in disbelief. What is this place? Claire removed her coat and put on a lab jacket. It's what's left of the truth, she said. Eli and I worked together before Project Vitalis was shut down. When the program turned dark, we built this hideout to keep the original data safe. I never thought I'd see another piece of it again. I placed the metal case on the table and slowly unlatched it. Inside were several glass vials, each labeled with codes and chemical formulas, along with a folded sheet of paper, the one Ryan had written years ago. Claire's eyes widened. You have everything. I didn't even know what I had, I admitted. Eli said this was the counteragent. He said Ryan, my husband, made it before he died. Claire hesitated, then looked up. Ryan didn't die, Amelia. My stomach dropped. What? She nodded slowly. I don't know what Eli told you, but Ryan survived the explosion. The government kept him under a different identity, hidden, monitored, controlled. He refused to give them the full formula for the counteragent, so they used him to keep testing. Until he escaped. I took a step back. Escaped? You're saying he's still alive? I believe so, Claire said. But if he is, they're hunting him just like they're hunting you. He might have been the one who led Eli to you indirectly. They've been trying to find whoever had the missing sample, and now that you've used it, they'll stop at nothing. I swallowed hard. So, what do we do? We protect the counteragent, Claire said firmly. And we find Ryan before they do. For a moment, I felt something new, hope. Maybe I wasn't alone in this anymore. Claire began scanning the vials, her fingers moving quickly across a console. If I can isolate the compound in your bottle, I might be able to trace where the original batch came from. It'll tell us where Ryan was last working. She took the bottle from me carefully, placing it in a holder beneath a scanning device. The machine whirred softly, lights flickering. Then, suddenly, every light in the room went out. The machine shut down. The monitors went black. Power cut, Claire muttered, grabbing a flashlight. They found us. A loud bang echoed above, then another. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. Hide, Claire hissed. She pushed me toward a narrow cabinet and shut the door before I could protest. Through the slits, I could see her standing firm, the flashlight beam trembling slightly in her hand. The steel door burst open. Armed men in black suits rushed in, their voices sharp and commanding. Dr. Whitmore, one of them barked. Step away from the table. Who are you? She demanded, though her voice shook. We're here for the formula, he replied. You know what happens if you resist. Claire glanced briefly toward my hiding place, then back at them. You'll never get it, she said defiantly. The man raised his gun. Last chance, Doctor. Her jaw tightened. Go to hell. The sound that followed was deafening. One shot. I bit my lip, choking back a scream as her body fell to the ground. The men moved quickly, sweeping through the lab, overturning tables, shouting orders. Then one of them spotted the case. Got it, he yelled. They started to leave, but then stopped. Wait, one said. Where's the sample from the robbery? The active one. I froze in my hiding spot. They were looking for the bottle. The scam log shows it was analyzed here just now, another replied. Find it. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Every muscle screamed for me to stay still, but when I saw them step over Claire's body and begin to tear through the room, something inside me broke. I couldn't let her die for nothing. I couldn't let them take it. As one of them reached for the shelf beside my hiding spot, I gripped the metal crowbar lying on the floor beside me. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely breathe. The moment he opened the cabinet door, I swung. The crowbar hit his helmet with a loud crack. He fell instantly. The others spun around, shouting. I ducked, grabbed the bottle, and bolted toward the emergency hatch on the far wall. Bullets rang out, shattering glass, ricocheting off steel. I pulled the lever, the hatch popped open, and I dove into the narrow escape tunnel just as a hand grabbed my coat sleeve. I yanked free and crawled through the darkness, gasping for air, clutching the bottle like my life depended on it. Behind me, their shouts grew fainter until I reached the end of the tunnel and burst out into the freezing night air. I stumbled into the woods, shaking, crying, covered in dirt and blood. And as I looked back at the smoke rising from the gas station, I realized one terrible truth. They hadn't just come for the formula. They had come for me. The forest was pitch dark except for the faint silver glow of the moon cutting through the trees. My lungs burned, my legs trembled, and every branch that cracked beneath my feet sounded like a gunshot. Somewhere behind me, the men were shouting, distant but closing in. Their flashlights flickered through the fog like angry fireflies. I ducked behind a fallen log, clutching the bottle to my chest, trying not to breathe too loudly. My heartbeat was so loud it felt like it could give me away. Claire was gone. Eli was gone. Everyone connected to this secret was dying one by one, and now they wanted me next. I closed my eyes, whispering to myself, "Ryan, if you're out there, please help me." That was when I heard it, faint at first, then clearer. A soft humming sound, rhythmic, mechanical. I looked up and saw headlights approaching through the trees, not from the road, but from deeper within the forest. A vehicle. For a split second, I didn't know whether to run or wave for help. But when I saw the shape of the car, a dark SUV with no lights on except its faint interior glow, my stomach turned. They had more men coming. I turned to run, but before I could take a step, a hand grabbed me from behind. I gasped and swung the bottle wildly, but the hand covered my mouth before I could scream. "Shh," a man's voice hissed in my ear. "It's me." The voice stopped me cold. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head, and standing behind me, wearing a dark jacket and a hood, his eyes wide and full of urgency, was Ryan, my husband, alive. I blinked, unable to speak. My knees nearly gave out. "Amelia," he whispered, holding my shoulders. "It's really me. We don't have time. They're seconds away. Come on." He pulled me toward the trees, and though my mind screamed in disbelief, my feet followed. We moved fast, crouching low through the underbrush until we reached a narrow creek. He led me across it, water soaking our boots, then into the shadow of a rocky cliff. Hidden there was a small opening, a cave, half covered by ivy. Once inside, Ryan finally stopped. I stared at him in the dim light from his flashlight, my hands trembling. His face was thinner, rougher. His beard had grown in, and there were scars near his temple. But it was him. The same eyes. The same way he tilted his head when he looked at me. "You're alive." I breathed, tears welling. He smiled faintly. Barely. I threw my arms around him, sobbing into his chest. For a long moment, I couldn't let go. The fear, the confusion, the sleepless nights. All of it broke loose in that single embrace. "I thought you were dead," I whispered. "They said you died in the explosion." "I wanted them to think that," he said softly. "It was the only way to protect you." I pulled back to look at him. "Ryan, what is going on? What is this?" He sighed, rubbing his face. "Eli told you about Project Vitalis, didn't he?" I nodded. "Then you know it wasn't just about peace or control. It became something much darker. The government didn't just want to calm violent behavior, they wanted to trigger it. To manipulate emotion itself. Fear, anger, grief, all of it. Imagine soldiers who could be programmed to feel nothing. Citizens who could be silenced with a single drop in their water." My chest tightened. "That's horrifying."
Exactly.
"That's why I destroyed the original batch and sent the counteragent to you. You were the only person I trusted." I shook my head. "Ryan, they killed Eli. And Claire. They were both trying to protect it too." His eyes darkened with pain. "I know." For a moment, the only sound was the dripping of water from the cave ceiling. He knelt beside a small metal box on the floor and opened it, revealing a laptop and several sealed syringes filled with clear liquid. "What are those?" I asked. "Extracts from the counteragent," he explained. "The version I made before the explosion. Yours is the final stabilized form. That bottle you've been carrying, it's the key to shutting down everything they've built. I looked at the bottle again, realizing its weight now wasn't just physical, it was moral. A choice between peace and power. They're after it because it can't be replicated without the molecular key inside it, Ryan continued. The structure changes every few hours, adapting to emotional energy, your emotional energy. That's why it worked on the robbers. Their fear accelerated the reaction. I blinked. So, you're saying the formula reacts to me? Yes, he said quietly. Because I encoded it to your DNA markers before I mailed it. My breath caught. You what? I was afraid they'd track it, so I made it bind only to your biosignature. It recognizes your emotional field, the sound of your heartbeat, even your scent. It's why it activates around you, not anyone else. I stepped back, shaking my head. Ryan, do you hear how insane this sounds? He smiled sadly. I know, but it's the truth. Before I could reply, a burst of static came from the small radio on the floor. Ryan froze, grabbed it, and turned the knob. A voice crackled through the speaker. Target located near the ridge. 2 heat signatures confirmed. Move in. My blood ran cold. They're coming, Ryan whispered. He grabbed my hand. We have to move.
Now.
We ran through the back exit of the cave, climbing up a steep hill covered in rocks and fallen leaves. My legs burned, my breath ragged, but Ryan pulled me forward. Behind us, flashlights flickered again through the trees. Voices echoed. They were closing in fast. We reached the top of the ridge, where the ground leveled out into an old forest trail. Ryan pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. A loud click sounded from below, then a rumble. The ground beneath the cave mouth exploded, sending dirt and fire bursting into the air. I stumbled backward as the blast lit up the forest. That should slow them down, Ryan muttered. We ran again, branches whipping our faces, until we reached a small wooden shack at the edge of a clearing. Inside was a dusty pickup truck with extra fuel tanks stacked in the back. Ryan jumped in the driver's seat. Get in. I climbed beside him, still shaking. Where are we going?
To finish what I started, he said.
There's one last lab, the central server, where the remaining Vitalis data is stored. If we can get there, I can wipe it permanently. I nodded, gripping the bottle tight. Then let's end it. He started the truck, and we sped down the dirt path, headlights cutting through the fog. My mind swirled with everything that had just happened. The robbers, Eli, Claire, Ryan's survival, the truth about the water. It was too much for one night. But just as I started to catch my breath, a sudden flash of light exploded ahead of us. An SUV skidded out of the woods, blocking the road. Ryan slammed on the brakes, tires screeching. 4 armed men stepped out, guns raised. Behind them, a taller figure emerged, calm, poised, dressed in a black trench coat. The same man I'd seen outside my house weeks ago. Dr. Grant, he called out. Nice to see you back from the dead. Ryan's grip on the wheel tightened. You, he muttered. The man smirked. Hand over the woman and the vial, and maybe I'll let you live this time. I could feel Ryan's heartbeat through the silence. Then he turned to me and whispered, When I tell you, run. I stared at him, shaking my head. No, Ryan. He looked at me, eyes full of that same fierce determination I'd fallen in love with years ago. Trust me. The man outside shouted, You have 5 seconds. Ryan whispered, Now. And then everything erupted. He slammed his foot on the gas. The truck roared forward, straight toward the SUV. Bullets shattered the windshield. I screamed as Ryan jerked the wheel, the impact sending metal twisting and flames bursting into the night. The world spun. Fire, glass, screaming tires. Then darkness swallowed everything. The last thing I heard was Ryan's voice, faint and desperate, calling my name. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The world around me swayed in slow motion, blurry shapes and faint smoke filling the air. My head throbbed, my ears rang, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was alive or dreaming. Then I heard it. Amelia. Ryan's voice, rough, desperate, echoed somewhere close. I blinked through the haze, coughing as I tried to sit up. The truck was on its side, flames licking the edge of the crushed hood. Glass glittered across the dirt road like pieces of ice. Ryan. I croaked, my throat raw. A shadow moved beside the wreckage. Then Ryan appeared, covered in soot, blood streaking down his forehead but alive. He crawled through the broken window and reached for me. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his hands trembling as he helped me out. I think I'm okay," I said, my voice shaking. My left arm burned with pain, but it wasn't broken. "You just bruised," he muttered. "We need to move before they—" A gunshot cracked through the air. The bullet hit the ground inches from Ryan's boot. "Find us," he finished grimly. We ducked behind the truck as more shots rang out. The men from the SUV were advancing, their flashlights cutting through the smoke. I could see the leader's silhouette, the tall man in the trench coat, his gun steady, his voice calm. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he called out. "You can't run forever, Dr. Grant. The formula belongs to us." Ryan gritted his teeth. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged." Another shot echoed, shattering the truck mirror. I screamed and ducked. Ryan looked around frantically, then spotted a small path leading into the woods. "This way," he shouted, grabbing my hand. We ran again, our shoes slipping on wet leaves, bullets whistling past. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. Every time I thought we'd lost them, their flashlights appeared again, flickering through the trees like ghosts. Finally, we stumbled into an open clearing, the moonlight spilling over an abandoned water treatment plant at the edge of a lake. Rusted pipes twisted overhead, and the wind howled through broken windows. Ryan stopped, panting. "We can take cover in there." "Come on." We climbed through a broken fence and into the facility. Inside, everything smelled of metal and dust. The air was cold, heavy with echoes. Ryan led me up a narrow staircase to an old control room overlooking the plant floor. He barricaded the door with a metal pipe, then turned to me, his eyes fierce. "We can't keep running like this," he said. "They'll find us no matter where we go." "So what do we do?" I asked. He hesitated, then opened his backpack and pulled out a small, black device, a transmitter, blinking faintly. "This is the last signal hub from Project Vitalis," he said. "If I activate it here, I can send a feedback pulse to their central server. It'll corrupt every digital copy of the formula." I frowned. "So it'll end everything?" "Yes," he said. "But there's a problem." "What problem?" "The pulse will reveal our location." I froze. "You mean they'll know exactly where we are?" He nodded. "They'll come fast. But if the upload completes before they reach us, it'll be over. No one will be able to recreate the serum again." I took a shaky breath. "Then do it. We'll hold them off." Ryan looked at me, pain flickering in his eyes. "Amelia, if they catch us." "They won't," I said firmly. "You've been running for years. It's time to finish this." He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." He powered up the transmitter. The screens around the control room flickered to life, casting a cold blue glow over us. The upload bar appeared. 1%, 3%, 6%. Outside, I could already hear engines, dozens of them. Ryan reached for his pistol. "They're here." "Then we buy time," I said, picking up a metal wrench from the floor. My hands trembled, but I held it tight. The first explosion hit the front gates. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. "Move," Ryan shouted, dragging a metal cabinet to block the window. The upload bar ticked up slowly, 18%, 25%, 31%. Gunfire erupted below. Voices shouted. The men had entered the plant. Ryan fired through the window, forcing them back. I ducked beside him, trying to stay low as bullets shattered the glass around us. "They're climbing the stairs," I yelled. "Keep them off me," Ryan shouted, typing frantically on the terminal. "If they destroy this before the pulse finishes, everything's lost." I grabbed a pipe from the floor, my heart pounding. As the door burst open, I swung hard, hitting the first man that charged in. He fell backward, crashing down the stairs. But another one pushed through right after him, gun raised. Before he could shoot, Ryan turned and fired. The man dropped. Smoke filled the room. The smell of gunpowder stung my nose. The upload bar blinked. 58%. 67%. 72%. Suddenly, the leader appeared in the doorway, calm as ever, gun aimed directly at Ryan's head. "Step away from the console," he said coldly, "or she dies." Ryan froze. The man tilted his weapon toward me. "Give me the formula," he ordered, "and I'll make sure she survives this." Ryan's eyes darted to me, then back to the man. "You're lying. You'll kill us both either way." The man smirked. "Maybe. But at least she'll die quickly." I could see Ryan's finger twitch near the keyboard, his mind racing. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't stop." His jaw clenched. Then, without warning, he pressed a key. The upload bar jumped to 100%. The room filled with a blinding white light. The leader shouted something, but his voice was drowned out by a deafening hum. The sound of data unraveling, circuits frying. Sparks exploded from the console. The walls shook violently. Ryan grabbed me and pulled me down as the entire system burst into flames. The leader stumbled backward, screaming as the power surge sent a shock through his weapon. He fell, convulsing, then went still. For a moment, everything went dark again. Then, silence. The only sound left was the wind whistling through broken glass. Ryan slowly stood, coughing through the smoke. The transmitter was melted. The screens were dead. "It's done," he said hoarsely. "The Vitalis database is gone." I stood shakily, looking at him. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Every digital trace erased. Whatever's left is only in that bottle you're holding, and only you can activate it." I looked down at the bottle, glowing faintly in my hands. "It's over," I whispered. Ryan smiled weakly, but before he could answer, a faint click echoed behind us. I turned, too late. Another man stood in the doorway, weapon aimed, his face twisted with fury. He wasn't dead yet. Ryan shoved me aside. The shot rang out. The bullet hit him square in the chest. "Ryan!" I screamed, catching him as he fell. He gasped, blood spreading across his shirt. "Amelia, run." "No. No, I'm not leaving you." He smiled faintly, eyes glazing. "You have to finish what we started. Take it to the coast. Claire's old contact. Portland, she'll know what to do." "Ryan, stay with me," I begged, shaking him. His breathing slowed. "I love you," he whispered. Then his hand slipped from mine. The man who shot him raised his gun again, but before he could fire, I threw the bottle. It hit the ground beside him, shattering, and a thick white vapor erupted, filling the room. He coughed, stumbled, dropped his gun. Within seconds, he collapsed, fast asleep, just like the robbers. I knelt beside Ryan, tears streaming down my face, his body still and warm. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise, soft orange light spilling across the broken windows. And in that moment, as the world fell silent again, I made a promise. This wasn't the end. I would find Claire's contact. I would finish Ryan's work. And I would make sure no one ever used fear to control another human being again. I looked down at the vapor swirling around me, the last remnants of the serum disappearing into the light, and whispered through my tears, "This ends with me." The hospital room was too quiet, too white, too calm for everything I'd just survived. Machines hummed softly beside me, their rhythmic beeps the only sign that I was still alive. My veins still burned faintly, as if the capsule's fire hadn't fully left my body. I kept staring at the envelope in my hand, Ryan's handwriting, sharp and certain even in death. Phase 2. The words pulsed in my mind like a riddle. What did he mean? Was there something left unfinished? Or something worse waiting to begin? I sat up slowly, ignoring the dull ache in my chest. The nurse who'd been standing at the door, young, polite, and a little too observant, offered me a glass of water. "Try to take it slow, Dr. Grant," she said kindly. Dr. Grant. That title felt foreign now, like it belonged to the woman I used to be, the one who believed in contracts, deadlines, and numbers. Not this new person who'd seen men drop unconscious after drinking poison water, who'd run through fire and betrayal and buried her own friend in the woods. I took the water but didn't drink it.
Not yet.
Not until I knew what was in it. Where exactly am I?
I asked.
Federal Medical Facility, she said smoothly. Portland Division. That made my pulse jump. The same city Ryan told me to go to. What day is it? Wednesday, November 11th, she replied. My stomach tightened. That was the date on Ryan's flash drive, the one labeled November 11th. Something clicked deep in my brain. None of this was coincidence. I glanced out the window. Across the street, a cluster of reporters crowded behind a barricade, cameras flashing, headlines scrolling on nearby screens. BioAegis downfall. Dr. Amelia Grant, the whistleblower who saved millions. The words didn't feel real. The nurse smiled faintly, checking my IV. You're a hero, you know. The government wants to meet you. They said you'll be fully briefed once you're stable. Government. Briefed.
Hero.
Too many polished words for something this dark. I nodded carefully. Thank you, I whispered. But my mind was racing. When she stepped out, I opened the envelope again. Inside the folded paper was not just Ryan's note, but something else. A small, metallic chip no bigger than a coin. On it, engraved numbers glimmered faintly in the light. November 11th, 25. Today's date. Under it, a single instruction. When the clock strikes noon, insert it into any government console. Then run. My hands trembled. The facility's intercom buzzed suddenly. Attention, all staff. Lockdown begins in 30 minutes for National Briefing Protocol. All access terminals will be restricted. 30 minutes until noon. My heartbeat picked up speed. I swung my legs off the bed and stood. My body was weak, but functional. The corridor outside smelled faintly of disinfectant and ozone. 2 guards in dark uniforms stood by the elevator. I scanned the hallway and spotted a maintenance hatch slightly ajar. I slipped inside before anyone noticed. The vent passage was narrow and dusty. My hands stung from crawling, but I followed the sound of distant voices until I reached a grate overlooking the main operations room. Below me, 5 men and 2 women in suits stood around a massive digital console. On the screen, maps, charts, satellite feeds. And in the corner, Vitaly's global containment, online. The same project Ryan had died to stop. They weren't shutting it down. They were scaling it up. I covered my mouth to keep from gasping. One of the men, a tall figure with sharp glasses and a confident smirk, was speaking. With Dr. Grant stabilized, we can finalize the transfer. Her blood now holds the stabilized sequence of Vitaly's X. It's active, controlled, marketable.
Blood.
Sequence. Marketable. They hadn't saved me. They'd harvested me. My entire body went cold. Then the clock on the wall ticked to 11:59 a.m. I reached into my pocket and held up the metallic chip. My heart hammered like thunder. Ryan, I whispered, I hope you knew what you were doing. I twisted the grate open and dropped silently to the floor. The agents turned in shock as I approached the main console. Dr. Grant, one of them shouted. What are you doing here? Finishing what Ryan started, I said. I slammed the chip into the data port. The screens flickered. Alarms blared. One of the agents lunged toward me, but the console erupted with static. Lines of code streamed faster than the eye could follow. Words flashed in red. Vitaly's termination sequence initiated. All databases purged. Public disclosure uploaded. All their hidden research, every illegal experiment, every corrupted file, sent straight to every news outlet and scientific registry across the world. No, the man with glasses screamed. Do you have any idea what you've done? I met his eyes, calm now.
Yes.
I've given the truth back to the people. Then the sprinklers went off, chemical fire suppression filling the air with thick, white mist. I grabbed a lab coat and dashed toward the emergency exit. Bullets cracked the glass behind me, but I didn't stop. I sprinted down the corridor, burst through the exit, and stumbled into the open air just as the entire upper floor exploded behind me. The force threw me forward, the heat licking at my back. When I looked up, the building burned against the gray Portland sky. Sirens wailed in the distance. People screamed, ran, pointed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid. Just free. 3 weeks later, the world had changed. BioAegis was gone, its executives arrested, its assets frozen. News anchors spoke my name every night, calling me the woman who stopped Vitalis. But I stayed hidden. I rented a small cabin near the Columbia River, far from the noise. I grew tomatoes. I listened to the quiet. Sometimes I'd dream of Ryan, his tired eyes, his half-smile. Sometimes I'd hear his voice in the wind. "You changed everything, Amelia." And maybe he was right. One morning, I received a small envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single note written in familiar handwriting. Vitalis was only one part. Phase 3 begins where the cure was born. Below it, a GPS coordinate. The same town where the 6 robbers had raided my home. I stared at it for a long time, the paper trembling between my fingers. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. The river flowed quiet and calm. I could pretend this was over, but deep down I knew the truth. The world hadn't seen the last of Vitalis. And neither had I. I folded the note, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and whispered to the empty air, "All right, Ryan. One more time." Then I started the car. And as the engine roared to life, the radio crackled on by itself, an automated broadcast looping over and over. This is not the end. Phase 3. Activation imminent. The road stretched endlessly ahead of me, the horizon glowing red like dawn or warning. And I drove straight toward it.